Hello, functional programming is a feature added in Java 8. Since then, it's used everywhere. The most famous concepts of functional programming are pure functions and immutable data. That's because we don't want any side effects in our functional pipeline. Also, it introduces higher order functions, which is functions inside functions, practically that. And makes functions as a first class in citizen in Java world. The most used standard function interfaces in Java are predicate, which takes an argument and returns a boolean, consumer, which takes an argument and returns nothing, so returns void, function that takes an argument and returns another argument, bifunction that takes two arguments and returns only one argument, a supplier takes nothing and returns an argument. For the null operator and the binary operator, these are almost like the function by function, but those types of functions takes only one argument and returns it, so it only works with one argument. So for example here it only takes the type t for the input of those two arguments and return it the same type. Okay, now let's see in practice how we can use those functional interfaces. Let's start with the predicate. So for the predicate, we have a method called test that we can use to call the predicate. For example, if we want to make a predicate that returns the length of a boolean, or returns if the length of a string is bigger than 10. For example, we have string and we want to check if it's bigger than 10, the length of the string. So we can do predicate that will takes a string and we call it string length checker, and takes a string and returns the length of string bigger than 10. We can use the test to call our predicate. We should call the name of the predicate, then add the method test, and we add what we want to check, which string we want to check. For example, let's test it with hello and let's test it with hello world and see what the result will be. I guess it will be false true, because here the length is smaller than 10 and here is bigger than 10. That's the predicate. Okay, so this is false true here, as you can see here. Let's talk about now. Let me add some message to make the code formatted better. Let's talk about here the consumer. So the consumer, as we said before, it takes an argument and returns void. For example, here is an example of consumer that takes a string and returns printed. So if you go into the consumer here, we'll see the accept method that we will use to call the consumer. It takes an argument and returns void. Now let's call that method and let's call it without any system.out, because it will returns us this system.out.println, because if you do system.out.println here, it will be wrong, because it's like we make it twice. So let's run our program and we'll see hello in the output. That's for the consumer. Let's now there is a problem here. Okay, let's fix it. Okay, run it again. Now let's move on to talk about the still okay. Let's talk about here the supplier. Let's use the shortcut, and you will see supplier, and the supplier, as we said before, it takes nothing and returns a string. For example, let's say we want a supplier that will returns this is a string, and let's call it string printer. As I said, it takes nothing as an input and returns a string. Okay. How we can call the supplier? We should use a method called get. So here it is, and this is we returns us this is a string. Okay, so that's a supplier. Let's now talk about function. And also we will talk about the unary operator. The function, as I said, it takes two arguments, one as an input and one as an output. So let's call it, for example, we want to check we want to take a string as an input and returns the length of the string. So the input will be in a string and the output will be in integer. So string length counter, for example, and take string, and that returns not println but it returns a stop length. Okay, here don't be confused about this between this and the predicate here. The predicate here it returns a boolean. Okay, but here the function it returns an integer. How we can use that? We should call the apply function. So here it should gives us 5 as the length of the hello world. Okay, that's it, 5. So let's now talk about the unary operator. The unary operator, as here it shows us that we can take string as an input and returns a string as an output. So that's why it takes only one argument. Here we return the string uppercased, so we should also call to the apply. If we run our program, it should gives us hello in uppercase. Let's now move on to talk about the binary by function and the by operator. Binary, yes. So let's make a by function that will check. Let's take string, and it will take also an integer and will returns us a boolean. This by function will check if string is the string length is equals to the integer that will pass it, and will return us a true or false. For example, I will pass it hello and 5, and it should gives me true, and another time I will test it with hello and 6, and it should gives me false as an output. So let's do that. I'll call it the string length checker 2. Okay, because we use that. So here it is. Let's see. let's do equals, and that will gives me the result that I want. Let's duplicate this and give it far fall. This would gives me true, and this will give me false. Okay, let's run it and see the result, and that's it. Okay, now that's all I want to talk about for the most standard functional programming in Java. Okay, one thing about, or let's say three things I want to talk about here. Each byte function takes a wrapper type. You can use int, for example. You can do that, so you should use the wrapper class. Another thing that you should take into consideration, if you have a lot of logic here, you should use the return keyword. For example, if you want to modify the e, you should use add curly braces and add return. This will work the same as before, but let's say that you want to modify the e for use case, I don't know. For example, you want to make the e double the e, so here you should use return, and you should use the curly braces here. If you for example, if you remove that, it won't work, so you should do that. That's something you should know about lambda. If you have a lot of logic, you should use the return keyword. Another thing that you should know about functional interfaces is that here, as you can see, the compiler is giving us a red line in the bottom of this code, because here you can replace this with method reference. Method reference is something optional actually, but it makes the code more cleaner and removes a lot of boilerplate. For example, you can remove this and replace it with a string to uppercase. Here is the same. You can remove all this, and okay, that's it. That's how we can use method reference in to replace lambda expression in functional programming. That's it for this video. I hope you like it, and see you in the next video. In the next video, we'll talk about streams and other things. Thanks for watching.